Think about what you heard earlier about restraint and seclusion, and take a minute to read the description of these techniques. Jot down a few key words as you read about them. Hopefully, you picked out some of these keywords. Restraint is last resort. Restraint must be documented. Administration and parents must be notified. Staff must be trained. And seclusion is not used. The next series of slides discuss utilizing the campus crisis team and documentation for more severe behavior. This behavior intervention grid is a way for crisis team members to create a plan of action for how staff will recognize and respond to student behaviors. This grid is individualized for a student and shows the student behaviors as well as appropriate staff responses at the proactive, anxiety, defensive, risk behavior, and tension reduction levels. This grid utilizes much of what we learned during CPI training. It is a great tool for staff to create, train the team on, and implement with students demonstrating high levels of problem behaviors. Take a look at this sample behavior intervention grid created for a student. Notice the behaviors he demonstrates at each level and the corresponding appropriate staff responses at each level. Remember, this is individualized based on one particular student. Can you use this chart and grid to create a crisis plan, crisis response plan for a student that you work with? Each campus should have a system of how staff can access the crisis team during situations of escalating and dangerous behaviors. This resource shows 3 levels of calling for support from the campus crisis team. This needs to be practiced frequently by the team and the staff working with the students who may need the extra support. This resource explains how staff can use pads for blocking physically aggressive behaviors. As CPI teaches us, we should always block and move from a strike for the safety of all involved. We should not be blocking students in rooms or areas with pads, as this can be seclusion. We should make every effort to keep students and staff safe by blocking strikes with pads and then moving out of the way. When we do need to engage in a restraint as a last resort to keep people safe, we must document the restraint and send it home to the parent within 24 hours. Directions for filling out the restraint paperwork in Frontline are also accessible in the resource folder. You will receive access to the Behavior Intervention Grid template and sample, restraint documentation instructions, call levels, a document on interrupting crisis behavior, and the guidance for use of pads for blocking at the end of the training. In the next section, we will talk more about debriefing problem behavior incidents.